SCP Containment Breach is a first-person horror game based on the SCP Foundation and its oddities, a fan-made project. We're looking at the version 1.3.10. Atmosphere. From the second the game begins, the atmosphere is uneasy. You open in a prison cell and everything from the music playing to the strange walk cycles of the guards, which I secretly hope they never fix. Everything feels unnatural. You get a strong uncanny valley vibe before the main event and the lights go out. After that, I rarely feel anything other than apprehension and dread. Even having played multiple versions of SCP Containment Breach, I find myself more afraid now that I know what to expect. With the slow-moving character and the short stamina bar, it gives you the feeling of helplessness with everything out to kill you and your character being so weak. With the game forcing exploration into the unknown, randomly generated areas where you face strange and bewildering entities and hostile creatures, this game's atmosphere is one of the best I've ever seen in a video game. 1 Harry Mason. Scares. With the main antagonist being a large, concrete, vaguely human-shaped block with a spray-painted face that moves only when you blink and can kill you in an instant, they created one of the best and most terrifying antagonists in horror game history, despite having no backstory, dialogue, or anything. SCP-173 engages the player in a cat-and-mouse chase where the cat moves at light speed and the mouse only has to make a single mistake before it's killed instantly. An obvious rip-off to the Weeping Angels from Doctor Who, SCP-173 forces the player to stay directly at it to keep it still long enough to lock it behind a door. Though not the only monster in the game, with SCP-106 being able to walk through walls and theoretically chase you forever, as well as SCP-049, which inflicts you with a plague, there's a plethora of monsters with strange and unique abilities to freak you out during gameplay. With this many enemies and odd events going on, the game barely gives you a break between waiting to be killed and actually being killed. There's a lot of great set pieces, and I found what wasn't particularly scary was actually very cool, but it was mostly SCP-173 and its insta-kill jump scares that inflicted the most fear. Knowing that you can't stop the blink gauge from descending and you're going to die was truly terrifying. 2 Harry Masons. Sound design. While the sound design is fairly rudimentary, and the sound effects themselves aren't really anything special, the ambience they make is great. The sound of the automatic doors opening and closing pierce the quiet, unnerving soundtrack. Anything that does make a noise sticks out and can cause you to panic. It all adds into the atmosphere and does a fantastic job at tension building. That's 3 Harry Masons. Gore. There's not really any gore in the game, some dead people and blood splatters, but it's minimal, and like I say with a lot of these, I don't think adding gore would have enhanced the experience at all, so that's 4 Harry Masons. Story. The story of the facility is where the game starts to fall apart. Whilst online there are pages and pages of backstories for the SCP facility, the SCPs themselves, and most things featured in the game itself there's not a lot of paperwork to be found, plus the randomly generated environments mean if there is, you may not always find it. Really, the observable story goes that you are a D-class test subject that was sent into a chamber to test SCP-173 when there was a malfunction with the doors, and SCP-079, a sentient computer, causes a containment breach in the facility. You are then set free to roam the facility and must try to escape with your life. Personally, even looking up the story for Containment Breach, I never found it to be particularly enchanting, and it pales in comparison to the SCP background lore itself, which makes the final score 4 out of 5 Harry Masons. I think the game's biggest strength and weaknesses is its randomly generated map. Sometimes you'll find you can't go anywhere because a certain keycard never spawned, or a set of doors to use the keycard on doesn't exist. Its cracks are fairly obvious, but as a horror experience it's one of the best you'll ever have if you can look past its obvious flaws. Plus it's free. Again, I'd like to remind you the whole thing is down to my opinion in horror games, and if you don't share this opinion, then that's cool. I get it. I'd like to point out whilst my heart stopped multiple times whilst escaping from SCP-173, I did not scream like a banshee or run away from the computer, and I advise you don't either. There'll be more horror reviews in the pipeline, and thanks for watching, and always go check out Bumps in the middle of the night. Peace.